I did a senior project where I built 2 home hydroponic systems and a recycled greenhouse. I'll get a little bit more into that later, but I want to start with how I got to choose my project. A big part of how I decided to choose my project was Dr. Munn. I was doing an independent study with her, and I've been a part of Environment Club. For those of you who don't know what Environment Club is, it's a club here, kind of a mix-up of engineering, community outreach, and environmental awareness. And I've been a part of that for 2 years now with Ms. Munn. And last semester I was doing an independent study with her and Zach Bresnick. And we were talking about what we wanted to do with the Environment Club this year, because last year we did a huge thing. Oh no. A huge thing with energy outreach, and so we went to the middle schools, or the elementary schools, and built little engineering projects with them based around energy. And so then this year we wanted to bring the Environment Club to a new level, and we went on an AP chemistry class trip last year to the Thimble Farm to the hydroponics, and we decided that that's what we were going to bring to the Environment Club this year. So my independent study with Zach kind of focused around organizing what we would do this year with the Environment Club. And so we got really deep into the hydroponics, and we were planning a middle school workshop as well, because the middle school students weren't able to be a part of it last year. It was mostly elementary school kids who we were reaching out to with our club. So we decided we were going to do something with them too. And that's really where the first system that I did for my project spurred from. So yeah, I'll start talking about that. So the first system that I built was this beautiful tower here. Yeah. So how it started was Zach and I went around to all of the middle school teachers for who we were going to take a point person for each school. All the elementary schools, we're going to have one teacher we were going to go to interview, to figure out which kind of system we wanted to build, where we would put the system in the school, and we would get them to help us sign up kids for the workshop that we were going to do for the Environment Club. So we went around to 4 of the 5 elementary schools, interviewed all the teachers, sat down for 5 minutes, looked at the space that they had. We showed them like 5 different pictures of different hydroponic systems. And so they decided that they wanted mostly vertical tower systems, and so this is the one that we went with. There aren't many how-to guides out there on building hydroponic systems because they're a fairly new thing. And there aren't really any commercial ones out there right now either. So we decided that we would have to kind of build from our own minds, really, and the materials that we had to get easiest to us. So what I did was I decided that since I was building hydroponics for my project anyways, I would go ahead and build a prototype for the middle school workshop for my project. And then that would be replicated 4 times in the middle school workshop at Thimble Farm. So what I did was I came up with a drawing of what I wanted in my mind of this tower. And then I contacted Thimble Farm and I worked with Keith, and we decided that this would be the prototype that we would do. I got recycled 5-gallon buckets from my dad. And so those were used. We got 14-gallon recycling bins from the school. Thimble Farm was really generous in donating the rest of the stuff. They gave the net pots, the plants, there's plastic under there. It's from a solar panel roofing because the panels didn't fit the solar panel things at Thimble Farm. Yeah, so I have a little slideshow of how I actually built it. I'm not really going to talk about it in depth, but I'll go kind of slowly so you can see just the process that it went through. All of this was done at Thimble Farm, probably in 4 or 5 sessions of like 2 hours at a time. And I worked with a guy named Matt. He was like the handyman at Thimble Farm, and he was super helpful in all of this. This slideshow was actually used in a workshop that I presented at Thimble Farm it was a home hydroponics workshop. I'll talk about that in a second. And it was also to help the students that I was teaching, of the high school students who were part of the Environment Club project, teach the elementary school students how to build them too. Okay, so the Thimble Farm Home Hydroponics Workshop As I was working closely with Keith, he had this home hydroponics workshop that he was bringing people from board to talk about cloning hydroponics to the thermal farm. And he wanted me to present my project to the people who were there. So there are about like 25 adults there who were really interested in the project. For the workshop, I had to come up with this handy-dandy spec sheet with a cost analysis of the project, just a quick like how-to guide. And many people took it from there, and Keith has actually had 3 people come back to the farm asking him for buckets to build theirs or how they're actually going to build his, which is really, really flattering to me because people are taking my project and replicating it to the people that I wasn't making do it. Yeah. So then, once I had my prototype built, we decided that we were going to go ahead and do the middle school workshop. So the teachers who we had gone and interviewed, we sent out flyers to them asking them to sign up 6 or 7 kids from each school. So we'd have around 24 kids coming to the Thimble Farm. We did it on March 26th. It was a Saturday. It was 9 to 12. We had 23 kids there. Yeah, they were all really excited about it. We gave them a little tour of Thimble Farm and told them how hydroponics works. And then we went to building 4 systems of the one that I had built for my senior project, which is really cool because now there's going to be one of my system in 4 of the elementary schools as well. Okay. So then after I did that one, I was having trouble deciding if I wanted to go and do another system or not. I knew that I kind of wanted to build a greenhouse as well because, well, first of all, I wanted to do a tiny house originally as my senior project. Really badly. And then I got it into the environment club and the hydroponics, and then I thought, well, I should be doing something with that, and I was really interested in that too. So I decided that there would be a way to mesh them together, so like a tiny greenhouse. So at this point, I wasn't sure if I was going to have time to build another system, because I knew I really wanted to do a greenhouse. So over vacation, I decided I was going to build it, because that's what I do. So I got the stuff, and then one day during vacation, after babysitting for 5 hours, I was so bored that I built the entire system that day. So this is called an NFT system. It stands for Nutrient Film Technique. That's kind of what it looks like. So the big PVC pipes that you saw, they had holes in them on the top, and then you put the little net pots in, and then the water on the bottom flows past the roots of your things. Oh, hydroponics is growing without soil. For those of you who don't know. Should have said that earlier. I knew I was going to forget to. I had a note. Yeah, so the roots go by, and then it's just a big circular system. And so I did that, and then I decided, wait, this isn't enough. Let me add a fish tank. So now there sits a fish tank at the bottom of my system, and it is turned into aquaponics. And so aquaponics is adding fish and hydroponics together because the fish, their waste gives off the ammonium and nitrates that the plants need to grow, and then the plants take out the ammonium and the nitrates that the fish can't have because it's toxic to the fish. So it's a friendly cycle, and you get cool plants and cool fish out of it. Yeah. Okay, and then my greenhouse. So this became the time crunch, surprisingly enough. I got recycled wood. I wanted it to the whole entire project to be mostly out of recycled materials as much as I possibly could. And this was the one that really stayed true to that. All the wood and the door, there will be windows eventually. They're all recycled. We got them from a friend of ours who's a carpenter. And so I have gotten a lot of help from my AP physics class building this. So the design factor of this was pretty difficult, trying to figure out what kind of design I wanted to build. At first it was going to be a normal house, and then it got to this slanty thing. I worked really closely with my dad on this one, which I really liked, because normally I don't get to do stuff with him. Well, projects. I do stuff with him. Yeah, and so he was the one who kind of helped me figure out what length goes where everything goes, how to get the wood. His truck was helpful. Yeah, and the hardest part of the greenhouse for me was trying to figure out the slant of the top, because there's going to be snow on it, and I didn't think about that there actually have to be a certain slope that the snow could slide off of it. And so the slope that went with the height that we went with on the side was too much of a slant that the door couldn't fit in. So we had to figure out a way to fit the door in and slant. But we did. We just cut the door. Yeah, and so what's going to happen, it's not entirely done right now, but we are still working on it this week. There's going to be greenhouse film that covers all of this space. There's going to be a window here, and then hopefully the NFT system will sit inside of that for people to see. And I'm hoping my fish don't freeze. Okay, so I already told you how I chose my project, but the whole reason behind why hydroponics is a big deal and why it's important is really about agriculture, or the way I see it. When I talk about agriculture in this sense, I'm mostly talking about like larger scale farms, kind of excluding the livestock factor of it. So agriculture, as of right now, is increasingly becoming more harmful for our environment than it is becoming helpful. So I'll tell you why. The global greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon footprint of agriculture, is taking up about nearly a quarter of the global carbon footprint, just from agriculture. That's due to the heavy machinery, that's due to the transportation, the fertilizers and the pesticides have a factor in that, deforestation, the low density in terms of there's a huge amount of land being taken down, but only so much plants being put in. The carbon absorption that would have been if all the trees were there is much lower than when the plants, or when the trees are there, it's higher than when all the plants are being planted. So the carbon footprint is going up in that sense. There's a lot of water being wasted in agriculture. Nearly 80% of our national water consumption is due to agriculture. In the western states, it's 90% of the water consumption, which is a problem. There's also a big problem being posed in, especially the Chesapeake Bay right now. There's these things called algal blooms. Algal blooms are when there's big things with algae, they're blue-green algae. The algae grows best when there's excess nutrients, especially phosphorus and nitrates, which comes from the pesticides and the fertilizers that come down into the rivers from the runoff water. The runoff water also has a lot of dirt and fertilizer and silt that makes the water really murky, and the algae can grow really well in like dark and murky waters. So then you have all these algae blooms sitting on top of the water, and there can't be a lot of marine life underneath because there's no sunlight to get to them. So that's not good. So why hydroponics is better than this? Hydroponics has a much lower carbon footprint because you can grow a lot more plants in a smaller area. So you wouldn't need these huge, vast deforestation, and then you wouldn't need to do it again, because with agricultural farming, you take out a piece of land, you grow your crops, and then it sucks out all the nutrients, so you have to go somewhere else and take more land. But with hydroponics, you can just make one greenhouse and you can build vertically. You have a lot more plants per square foot, so your carbon absorption is a lot higher. So you have a lower carbon footprint. It doesn't have the effects of the runoff into the rivers, so there aren't any algal blooms due to hydroponics, really. Water consumption is significantly lower because hydroponics is a circulatory system, so all the water is being recycled. Yeah, sometimes you do have to dump it out and restart, but it's not like you're dumping gallons and gallons of water every single day into a hydroponic system. A lot of hydroponics now, too, especially at Thimble Farm, they're an aquaponics system. So what I was talking to you about earlier, the fish, it's like that. They have big tanks with large fish, and then they cycle all their water through again. So it's easier to save all the water in that system. Regulations on agriculture. So I'm going to use Chesapeake Bay as another example. So regulations on the harms of agriculture, like reducing the carbon footprint, reducing your fertilizer, reducing how much waste you can be putting into the rivers, it's mostly done by state. There are no real federal regulations or that really stick on you and make sure that you're paying attention to them. A lot of it is done by the states. And so when you have a river like the Chesapeake Bay, it crosses over a lot of different state lines. So a lot of the different states have different regulations for what can or cannot be put into the river. So it's really uneasy, and a lot of it isn't enforced really well. So it's not very controlled in that sense. For hydroponics, it's much easier to control what you're putting into the systems, and you can control everything else, the temperature. You can use natural pest control, which is what Thimble Farm uses. So instead of pesticides and fertilizers, well, they use the fish for the fertilizers, but for pesticides, they'll release natural pests or predators for the things that are eating their plants instead of putting harsh pesticides on the plants. Like when I was doing my workshop, they had just released 1,000 ladybugs to eat all the aphids. Yeah, so it's kind of all I have.
Hi, I wanted to ask about some of this hydroponics in other countries. I mean, we live on an island, so we don't have vast amounts of land to grow for everyone necessarily, but would this also be transportable to places where hunger, like India or other countries, third world countries?
Yeah, so Netherlands is really working with the hydroponics. They have a lot of good hydroponics farm there. But also hydroponics is starting to be brought to the countries, like the third world countries, who don't have a lot of access to water or don't have a lot of access to good soil, because you don't need the good soil and you really need a limited amount of water. So they are bringing that to places like that to bring sustainable food. Yeah.
So you've been working on this senior project, the actual project for a semester, but the idea has been formulating for a while. What was your favorite part of doing this senior project? And contrarily, what was the hardest part?
Okay. My favorite part was probably building the NFT system, because I did it all by myself, and that was really flattering to me that I did that. Yeah, and I think another really cool part of it was how Keith had people coming to him asking to build my system that I had made, and people were really interested in what I was doing. The kids were really excited about what I was doing, and I think that was really cool being able to do that. The hardest part would be building the system by myself. That was hard. There were some challenges with each system, but I don't know. There really weren't that many hard parts, except for that, doing it by myself.
So are you now I know you're going to continue and finish the greenhouse, but are you going to move forward with this project? And if you are, where are you taking it?
Yeah, well, this specific project, I probably will just leave behind, and I think I'm gonna keep it here, either in some of the classrooms or some of the systems will sit in the garden. In terms of the idea of hydroponics, I'm definitely gonna move on with it. I'm going to study environmental science, which I'm hoping entails hydroponics in some way, because I'm definitely interested in that.
What type of plants do you plan to grow?
In my systems?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this system here has watercress, and red sorrel, and lettuce, chives, there's celery in there, there's a strawberry plant on top. In the system that I have at my house that I will be bringing here in the NFT system, there's going to be basil, kale, other stuff, I can't remember, but just veggies.
And do you plan to give any of the strawberries to any of your siblings?
Since this is just water flowing through the system, where and how would you add fertilizer or nutrient to the system if it doesn't fit?
Yeah, so for a system like this, you'd use liquid fertilizer. There's a lot of different ones out there. You just put like a little cup of it in, and then you can kind of watch the plants, and they can, if they're like drooping down, you know they need a little bit more food in them. So, yeah.
How long ago did you plant these plants?
Well, these, funny story, 5 minutes ago.
They look amazing. Well, I mean, you can't really be transporting it all over the place and expect it to do well, right?
Yeah, well, the round that I had in this before had been in there for at least 2 months. Yeah.
And so the concept is you harvest it and
Yeah.
you keep growing and planting new stuff. And then, I'm sorry, I have another question. The greenhouse, was your idea to put your other system in the greenhouse? That's gonna fit in there?
Yeah, I think just one of them will,
Yeah.
and one of them will probably stay in the classroom. Yeah. Mr. Wilson?
Could you tell me what you've got growing in your tower? I think I see maybe some houseplants and maybe some vegetables too, or?
Yeah, well, they're all vegetables.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, there's strawberries and
Oh, that's
watercress.
what it is, okay.
Yeah, and lettuce and red sorrel. And,
How, I don't know if you know this or not, but like, how would a large-scale farm be able to do like how do they make it, like the hydroponic systems bigger so that it's able to produce like massive amounts of food?
So, a lot of the hydroponics farms that I've seen don't really use this kind of system, like a tower system, because it's not as easy. They'll do the NFT system. A lot of time they'll do the table systems. If you know what that is. Okay. It's like the NFT system, but it's like a big, if you had a table with like gutters on it, and it looks like the PVC with the holes on top, and then they'll run it through there. But, so they just do a lot of larger scale things that I've done.
So I love your system, but it requires energy, and would there be a way to like maybe refine it further to reduce like the pump energy and electrical energy that you're using, or other ways that you could maybe leave it with questions for students to build off of your original design?
Yeah, so I was actually talking about this with Mr. Munn when we were putting in the greenhouse, because we had the problem of, okay, well, we have a pump and we have a plug, but where are we going to plug it into? There's the idea of an extension cord, we could do that. Or I could leave it and have a student next year turn it into a solar panel project. Like converting the pump into AC/DC and then putting a solar panel outside where they charge the battery, and then the battery would put on to the system. So we have definitely thought about that in terms of reducing the energy and having it be easier to get the energy in that case too.
Would be great to put it anywhere then too.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Already?
What was the award that you got? Let everyone know about it. You had to miss a soccer game or something. You know.
Okay, so there were a few awards for the system. One of the big ones, well, they were all under the Environment Club. It's not really my award, but what we did with the Environment Club from my system won quite a few awards. We won the Secretary's Award for Excellence in Energy and Environmental Education. We won third honors for this project. In the NEED, which is National Energy Education Development, we won the the Massachusetts Senior School of the Year, and the national runner-up.
I have another question. So if, how much, you need a lot of light for these? Like, we're trying to find, we have no place we didn't want to put a bunch of trees down, but if we found a sunny spot, you could build something that would catch the available light.
Yeah.
You do need a fair amount of light, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi Casey. I'm thinking about the fish and the aquaponics one. I think it's interesting. Where do those fish come from? I don't know, are they little, are they big? What happens to them? Do you catch them, do you put them in there for a while and release them?
Yeah. Well, with my system, I'm gonna put goldfish in, so you probably don't want to eat those. They are small.
Yeah.
But if you go to Thermal Farm, they have rainbow trout, and then they do give them, I think they give them to State Road. Yeah.
State road.
They sell them
Yeah.
to a bunch of restaurants.
Yeah, they sell them to some restaurants on the island. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you offer any suggestions to underclassmen who might be thinking of doing a senior project?
Yeah. I would definitely say do something that you're interested in. And this is hard. If you have a weird idea, just go with it. Like a tiny house.
Yep.
It may evolve. Yeah, but just do something that you're really interested in, because if I wasn't so interested in this, I probably wouldn't have made that on my vacation day.
Is there any like health benefit, like if you eat the veggies from just the water? Are they benefiting?
I don't think in general, like hydroponics is healthier. I think if you don't use pesticides, it would be healthier. It does grow a lot better in hydroponics, and you do get a higher yield, but the actual composition of the plants doesn't, I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Well, it's a philosophical discussion, because whether you're using organic fertilizer or inorganic fertilizer, and that's a personal choice. But as far as the composition of the actual nutritional value of the plants, that's the same whether it's organic or inorganic.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much.
Make sure that you have